Because it's a pre-existing language describing states that are constant. I don't think because the language is historicized, the experiential states are historicized. And there's no contemporary language since modernism that describes those kinds of things. Religion is important to me personally as religion, but otherwise it provides metaphorical systems that nothing else does, particularly since religious painting was such a large part of the Western tradition for its whole duration. I paint saints because of their historical iconographic tradition and because nothing else serves as that kind of language now. Lately, what I've been thinking about most is what painting does best, what only painting does, since there are so many things that are sort of, in an obvious way, much more exciting. One thing it does is it looks like something it's not. It does more than just sit there like a chair. And I don't think it's any longer necessary to make paintings that just sit. And so this makes the idea of space inside a painting, in front of a painting, around a painting, increasingly interesting stuff. Lately, I changed the way of painting things because I wanted the paint to exist as paint while it was depicting something else. I didn't want to follow a system, and I wanted the paint to exist independently of whatever it was portraying. I use shallow space too. I mean, I think anything that makes the painting living, lively, puts in the tension of itself as an object and where it goes, in or out, activates it. When you say a painting is an object, you say a person is an object. The painting with life in it, an exit or an entrance, is a person that's a person. The implications of painting space or painting flatness are theological, philosophical. I don't think it's coincidental that people despair about the end of modernism at a time when they despair about social collapse. I think the only way to get teenage welfare mothers off the dole is paintings with deep space. Well, they look like what we look at. I think it would be anachronistic to paint saints in the way they were painted in 1450. So I use our landscape stuff and our people. Cartoon people, debased people. I mean, we are a society that embraces the victim and the debased continually. So I feel like that's the language we have. That's the stuff we get. Out of that, I want to make something else. A real human being that's not a cartoon. And that's about the way it's painted and the relationship the viewer has to the image. So they're not just cartoons, and it's not like I'm mad about cartoons or aliens or people on Oprah Winfrey. Whether you can conversely say real people are saints is debatable, but there is that language of the extraordinary person, the person whose existence or sensations or experiential life has significance. I don't think that's an outmoded concept in spite of Oprah Winfrey. I think lives are significant, and I don't think it's really evil to think that painting has to do with that. I don't think it needs to be overly personalized and really can address something like the human condition, which I think the stories of the saints really do. Saints are about belief. Painting is about belief. When you can simultaneously encompass brush mark, face, and simultaneously encompass saint, human being, that's where two metaphors fit together beautifully. The metaphor of painting and religious metaphors in general. I mean, I think art and religion are made for each other. When art became secular, it became about itself. And what do you get then? Flat paintings, boring paintings everybody's sick of. And I don't know what could replace religion as the parallel metaphor if people just want to make paintings about being alive and not about being an object. Painting seems now to be used for everything except the stuff that's good at. People don't like painting anymore. Because I don't think they understand what it does best, because I don't think they've recovered from the disassembly that modernism was. I mean, instead of taking what pieces were left over and making something else, they just let it be a blank wall. Why painting is becoming increasingly subjective, because if there's no theoretical basis like the modernist trajectory on which you can judge something, then you're left with a subjective standpoint. And so if a person is looking at the sort of unified field of trash that our culture looks like, then they just pick things up. They pick up whatever is appealing. They like stick the head of a Barbie onto a bear, and they get this thing. And then they come to love this thing like a little kid would, who would stick the head of a Barbie onto a bear. And there's nothing to make that painting coherent or convincing or credible except the investiture of that person into the Barbie and the bear. I don't think modernism is a problem for me. I think it was a really useful tool and device. And I think it's cool that way. I don't understand how it became such a religion for people, because it's really a sort of bastard son of science. And when the humanities and science mess around, science always wins. Just being alive. That's all. That's what it does best. It makes metaphors for being alive, because it's an object with an existence outside of being an object. A person is an object with an existence outside of being an object. That's easy. That's like so easy. It doesn't have to tell a political story. It doesn't have to do anything except just live there on your wall. I mean, like, no problem. It has to do something. It can't just sit. It has to do something. When people go into a studio, they go, that works. That doesn't work. They know what that is. It doesn't just lay there. I think illusion is the truth of painting. I think that's what it does. I like paintings that are as generous as possible, where you put in as much stuff as you possibly can. I don't want to leave anything out. If I can make it, if I can do it, then I want to put it in, because I want a lot to look at. I like to look at paintings that give you a lot to look at. You know, like, is a paraplegic lesbian more oppressed than an Asian American Jew? I mean, painting is just like that. Are my paintings more debased than your paintings? It seems like it's evil and perverse to want to make a painting that's not about any kind of hideous debasement. That's about people just being there, or actually being interesting.
My name is Ocihai. I'm an artist. I'm Japanese. But I'm not sure I'm really artist or not, because I think nowadays the things makes people artists or not is, I think, gallery or museum, which has authority. And so I'm kind of my work is always irony of the truth, what I just said. To me, every idea is from somebody's idea. So what we can do is just put together what we know. So getting information is maybe the only way of creating something I think that getting information is the only way of the making art or making something right now. So I think what we can do is just put together what we got. Well, my work is often consist of a lot of proper noun, which is like a name of the film star or name of the film director or name of the film title or name of the whatever fashion or something like that. I think what's the difference between young Japanese and young American is I think young Japanese is obsessed with buying something or buying sort of try to identify through buying something. And for example, I think the number of the anime space shop in Japan is I would say like 40, 50 or something. I just know like a couple of anime space shop in New York and one in Boston and one in Los Angeles. So I guess like 3, 4 anime space in United States. And like vintage 501, they just buy, I don't know, like 1,000 to 2,000 to buy old Levi's. Never have I seen like people who wear old Levi's. I'm sure maybe you don't know, you don't understand what I'm talking about. I think first time I saw Andy Warhol was a Japanese commercial. I think my work is always made in a contradiction between what I say and what I think. Like my art is influenced by house music or rock music, which is played very loud, so we can be experienced just body and without thinking, and just like Brigitte Bardot, which makes people free. I don't have any program. I don't know why. I'm making art from film because I just like film. I guess I'm obsessed with not being obsessed. Painting to me? What do you mean? Painting? I just really don't know. Painting, you should ask Elizabeth. Okay, painting is very old-fashioned, and I think we cannot do anything with paintings, and that's why everybody's struggling. I'm rather just talk about painting. I think as a matter of fact, my dad used to paint, so I feel like I'm just following him.
I was told once that I should have 3 things to say about my work, and I don't. I have lots of little things to say about my work and not that many really great non sequiturs. But I think that my work, most of it, which moves, tends to be considered kinetic work, but most of us that make things that move now don't like to be called kinetic artists. This work is all time-based, and it's about motion, but in my case I think the work actually is more like performance. I mean, each piece goes through a cycle, but it's a little performance, and they have a kind of theatrical angle. The other thing that I think is paradoxical about this work is that even though motion is all about change, the themes of this work is usually about not changing. Even though they move, they seem to repeat themselves, not in extremely predictable ways, but in kind of futile ways. They don't seem to make much progress. I think that the motions tend to be fragile or have a lot of effort, and they don't make any progress. I think that you do get a feeling that of futility and maybe kind of a pathetic. I think you get a feeling that these pieces are going through a futile repetition and that their effort is ultimately pointless. I think that probably people go through a lot of their lives trying to accomplish things, but that quite often you get left with the feeling that maybe nothing's actually happened. And in this work, it's very clear that in my viewpoint, a lot that we try to make happen doesn't really happen. I think that there's that no matter how hard I try to avoid coming up, I think no matter how hard I try to express any particular idea clearly, that always from beneath comes the ideas that you really feel, and that you tend to reveal those things whether you like it or not. And I think that there tends to be a pretty, not pessimistic, but almost kind of piquant, disappointed feeling in most of this work. That probably it wasn't something that I thought I was doing. It was something that was told to me by enough people that I began to see that maybe I've learned something about myself just by making this sculpture. That I'm not the rosy-cheeked towhead that I thought I was when I was younger. I try to incorporate humor in most of this stuff, and I think that doesn't make this stuff necessarily lightweight. I think humor is a really accessible door to go to almost any other idea. I think that, for instance, in the work of somebody like Charlie Chaplin, he would incorporate slapstick and a lot of humorous devices that would lend you, or rather, no. I think in the case of Charlie Chaplin, he would use slapstick and a lot of other humorous devices to lead you to more poignant feelings of his about the human condition. And if I got anywhere close to something like that, I'd feel pretty good about it. I think that humor is basically rooted in pain, and an interesting thing about human beings is that they are the beings that live with the knowledge of their own death, their own demise, their own frustration, and these things. I think that there's actually an aesthetic side to that people don't really want to embrace. It's kind of sublime to know your limitations. There is an appreciation of that you can have that really rounds out the experience of your life. That if you ignore that and try to just have a completely rosy outlook, you've missed half of the content of what it was that you. Most of my stuff is made out of cast-off things. It's just junk, really. And I think that somewhere along the way I thought that might be useful to make a point, but really it's got more to do with my personality. I'm pretty stingy, and I hate to spend money on things that are as useless as art, and probably I won't get any return on this investment. So it's much easier for me to just like rag pick and dumpster dive and get this stuff. And I don't mind spending days working on a piece of useless metal Not nearly as much as I would buying some, say, raw nylon and some other expensive synthetic materials that would probably do just as well. But I think that there might be just that sort of worn aspect of this stuff that helps, move it through the kinds of meanings that that the work does go through. But I also have the feeling lately that maybe I could move away from junk. I wouldn't have to depend on junk. I could actually work with new things. I'm looking forward to that. Because right now everything seems to be made out of bicycle parts. I don't even have a bicycle anymore. I want a truck.